Hello to everyone, and welcome to today's virtual event. My name is Carlo Bobilas, and I'll be your moderator for this session. I'm pleased to introduce today's speaker, Solutions Engineer Paul Stryer. But before I hand over the mic, I do have a few housekeeping items to cover about today's session. Today's session will be recorded and made available for on-demand playback. We'll make sure to provide those details at the end. Also, we'd love to hear from you during today's presentation. So if you have a question for Paul, please scan that QR code that's on the screen to participate live. Our panelists are on to answer your questions. Lastly, I do want to point out that there are resources available within Slido. If you look towards the top left corner of your Slido window, you'll see various links to knowledge articles, today's post-event discussion thread, and even the live stream itself. All right, so without further ado, I'd like to kick things off by welcoming Paul. Paul, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And welcome everybody to today's session, which is Cisco Catalyst in the cloud. And we're going to be just basically talking about how to get our Catalyst switches managed and monitored by the Meraki Dashboard. Before I get started, I'd like to thank my panelists, which is Walt, Varun, Darren, Doug, and Carlo, and James. I really appreciate all the help that you've given me to support me for this session. I have today's session is going to be a lecture and demo type of session. There will not be any hands-on for you guys. It's me doing hands-on demoing for you. Most of the session will be demo. I will be going back and forth between slides, but most of it will be demo. Also, don't forget that asking questions, you do that in the Slido. So get into there and ask questions there. And Walt, Varun, Darren, and Doug, and a few other people will be answering questions for you live. I won't be taking them live because I'm going to be presenting, and I want to try to get this whole entire thing done by within an hour, hour and a half. With that being said, I'm just going to go ahead and jump right in. And again, this is Cisco Catalyst in the cloud. So today, in this agenda, we're going to talk about what is cloud managed. And we're calling it cloud managed as the whole overall encompassing name for this whole thing that we're going to be doing today. And we're going to be using Catalyst switches with cloud native iOS XE. We'll explain what that is in a few minutes as we go through. I'm going to also talk about the hardware, what kind of hardware is supported for this, which that list is growing daily. So again, once what you see in my slides today, please go out to cisco.com to actually find out what's supported when you need it, because the list changes daily. We're also going to talk about two different modes that I can put my Catalyst switch in. I'm going to talk about device mode and cloud mode. So we'll go way deep into that, so I won't do that right here. This is just the agenda. Then we're going to talk about some of the features that you will gain by putting your Catalyst switch into the cloud. And then we'll start getting into hands-on. So the hands-on, the first demo will just be a tour of the lab that we'll be using today. So a quick 5-minute tour just to show you around so you're familiar with the lab. Then we're going to talk about device onboarding, because we have to take the Catalyst switches and onboard them into the Meraki Dashboard. Again, there's two different ways we're going to do that. There's two modes, one mode called device mode, one called cloud mode. We'll talk about what the difference is in a minute. Then we're going to get in and actually onboard a Catalyst switch into the Meraki Dashboard. Then we'll take a look and show you some of those features that we talked about earlier. We'll actually start showing you those with a hands-on feature lab. And then at the very end, I'm going to show you the fact that we can take a WLC, a wireless LAN controller, and we can actually onboard that into the dashboard and actually be able to see our wireless controller, our access points, and the clients that are attached to the access points. We can monitor those in the dashboard. So it's actually really cool. With that being said, let's move on and actually jump into the meat and potatoes of this. So cloud managed, again, that is the term that is used for the overall encompassing, I'm going to take a Catalyst switch, I'm going to put it in a Meraki dashboard, and I'm going to monitor it and or manage it. I'm going to do that, again, with newer code called Cloud Native iOS XE. And if you look at the very first section where it says provision and deploy, the cloud native software started at around 17.15.01. That's where it started. Before that, we had cloud managed, but we called it cloud monitored, and it was a container-based version of what we have today. That was the initial startup of it. We no longer have that container version. And anybody out there that is using the container version still today, that is end of life and actually ending early next year. So you really need to start getting off of those container-based ones and into what we're going to talk about today. So if you are in container-based already, start thinking about your plan to get out of those and into what you're going to see today. Now, for the last 3 or 6 months, I don't remember how long it's been such a whirlwind, but for the last few months, I've been using 17.15.3, which is the stable GD release that's out in Cisco.com. It's also in the Meraki Dashboard. Now, just out is 17.15.4. I haven't actually went to look to see if it's on Cisco.com, but I'm assuming it is because it has now showed up in Meraki. So I could actually go into the Meraki Dashboard right now and actually tell it to upgrade all my cloud mode devices to that new code. I didn't do that yet in my lab because I had this event and I had a major event in Las Vegas a couple of weeks ago. So I didn't want to upgrade this lab, and I'm going to start upgrading it next week to 17.15.4, or I might even go to 17.18.1, which is the new beta release that is obviously the next version that we're going to be going to. So, and that's in beta right now. And you can see that there's some really cool features that are going to be coming with 17.18.1. You got VRFs, BGP, you got the 9500 support, you got routed ports, rapid spanning tree. And down below that, I created a tiny URL link to a document out in Cisco.com that explains all the release notes for 17.18.1. So again, if you want to go to tinyurl.com/CLD MGMT iOS XE5, I created that tiny URL for all the links you'll see today and just put a different number at the end. So if you write that down once and then just write the number after it, you'll be able to quickly get those links that I have in my PowerPoint today. So anyways, you're going to need to be at a native iOS XE version to get what you're going to see today in this lecture. And then once we get to that and we've onboarded a device, we can either manage devices or we can monitor and manage devices. And again, that goes back to that mode that I was talking about for cloud or device configuration mode. Again, we'll talk about that in a little bit, but device configuration mode is monitored only, and cloud configuration mode is monitored and managed. So again, we'll talk more about this in a couple of minutes. This is just really the overview. And again, some of the really cool reasons to actually go to cloud managed is for the assurance and health data that we can see, because I can see with a really cool graphic which ports are lit up and which ones aren't lit up. I can see health, I can see assurance data. I can look at particular clients and see, that they're talking to YouTube or they're talking to, to Netflix or whatever. I can see that kind of data flowing into the dashboard. And with a quick glance, I can see that. And troubleshooting is done very easily too. So every morning when I get to work, I can open the dashboard and very quickly I can see whether everything's all green or if there's a couple of reds there, like maybe a switch dropped out. I can actually see, red very quickly, dive down into that and drill down in the dashboard, find out which switch is not connected or whatever happened to that switch, and fix it and bring it back online and have it go green in the dashboard so that a very quick glance, I can see that everything's operational in my network. And there's also other really cool tools like intelligent capture. We'll talk about that later in the section. We have ping tools, we have cloud CLI, and a bunch of really cool tools that we'll talk about later in this whole thing. Supported hardware. The list is growing daily. I used to list all the models here. I can't list the models here because there's too many for one slide. It becomes an eye chart. So just looking at the slide here, you can see like the 9200 family, the 9500 family, the 9300 family. We're starting to see all these different families of switches coming online. And again, if you go to that link, it's at the bottom of the page there, tinyurl.com, CLD, MGMT, iOS XE. It'll take you to an overview of Cloud Managed, but it'll also start giving you the lists of all the supported switches and all the modules that go in those switches. So again, you need to look at the website, not my slides, to see, because that's a moving target that happens daily. All right, so here's where the real the rubber hits the road here. So this is when we start really diving deep into what Cloud Manage is and how we actually configure it when we're onboarding. I told you there are two modes. Now those two modes are cloud and device. Now they're calling it in all the documentation configuration source cloud and configuration source device. Now, with that being said, if you look at cloud configuration source cloud, we just recently had a name change, and it was formerly called cloud operating mode. So if you hear somebody say cloud operating mode, they really meant configuration source cloud. I'll explain how they came up with this name in a minute because it actually makes total sense when we look at it. And for cloud configuration source device, on the right-hand side over here, you can see that it was formerly called hybrid operations mode. Now, I was at a big event 2 weeks ago, and a lot of people are still calling it hybrid, and that's why I wanted to point it out here. If you hear somebody say hybrid operations mode, they probably mean configuration source device, because that's the new and real name for it now, and that's what they put in all the documentation. So let's take a look at why they did this name change and why they're calling it config source cloud and config source device. When we configure these switches and bring them into the Meraki dashboard, I have an option when I'm onboarding them. The option is cloud or device. If I go cloud with a Catalyst switch, that means it's going to be completely, totally, 100% managed and monitored by the dashboard, which means anytime I want to change the configuration, I actually have to do it in the GUI of the dashboard. I cannot go to CLI when I'm in cloud mode. When I'm in this mode right here, I could not configure with CLI. If I was to go to the cloud CLI and try to type config T while I'm in cloud mode, it will not let you. It is read only. If I go over to a device that's configuration source device mode, that one is read write only. So when I go into device mode, I am in it's hybrid. I'm kind of dipping my toe into the water. The switch is still operating like it always has. The configuration is actually still stored in the device. So when I'm in device mode, the configuration is stored in the device, and that's why they call it config source device. And this device is still managed by using CLI. So I can plug a rolled cable into the console port. I can SSH to the console. I can SSH to the terminal. I can use the cloud CLI in dashboard, and I can type config T. I can configure the box, and then I can do a copy run to start or a write, whichever one you're using, and I can save the config. So with configuration source device, I am monitoring the Catalyst switch. I am not managing the switch with the Meraki dashboard. When I'm in configuration source cloud mode, the configuration for the device is stored in the cloud. That's why we call it config source cloud. It's stored in the cloud, and whenever I make a change to it in the dashboard, in the GUI, not in CLI, but in the GUI, then I can it gets synchronized to the switch. So we're not actually looking at the config on the switch when we boot the switch. We're going out to Meraki, getting the config, and bringing it down to the switch synchronized. And that's why they call it configuration source cloud. When I'm in cloud configuration source mode, it is fully managed and fully monitored by the Meraki dashboard. When I'm in configuration source device, that is when I'm in that hybrid type mode where it's being monitored by the dashboard, but not managed by the dashboard. I hope I've wrung that out with you guys to the point where you understand it. Again, cloud mode is when I'm fully managed and monitored. Device mode is when I'm only monitored by the dashboard. Now, another thing that I noticed when I was at that big event in Vegas a couple of weeks ago was people were confused by the terms. And like using the whole term cloud managed as a overall broad name for this whole thing. And if someone says, I have a cloud managed Catalyst switch, well, the first thing you're going to want to say to them is it device or cloud config mode? Because, until you know how that device was onboarded to the dashboard, you don't know how it's going to be managed. You don't know if it's managed locally or if it's managed by the dashboard. So the question to ask when someone says they have a cloud managed Catalyst switch is it device or cloud mode, right? So again, we need to talk apples and apples and oranges when we're talking to each other. And I noticed a lot of confusion when I was out in Vegas at that event. People were, mixing up the terms and people were being confused. That's why I'm pointing that out here. All right, some of the features. This is just some of them, not all of them. Just kind of want to start dipping our toes into what the features are. This slide is a little misleading because some of these features work one way with cloud and a different way with device. And some of them work the same with cloud and device. So let's start with health and assurance. So this is where I'm collecting data from the switch. I can see which ports are lit up. I can see what data is flowing in. You know how when you do a show interface and I can see all the how much traffic's flowing through that interface, I can see that in the dashboard by clicking on the port for that switch and looking at what data is flowing through that port. So that is the same whether I'm in cloud or device mode. No matter which mode I am in, all of that assurance and health data, that makes it to the Meraki dashboard. The Meraki dashboard displays it for you in a really easy to understand way, and graphs and charts and pie charts and all kinds of really cool stuff. And it makes it really easy to see. A lot easier to see than when you have a bunch of CLI commands, right? Now, so that is the same. Health and assurance is the same, whether I'm in cloud mode or device mode. Image upgrades. Now, with image upgrades, this is different if you're in cloud or device. I should preface that with the last time that I looked at this, because I have not looked at it in like 3 months, because I've been building a lab to get ready for that big event. Last time I looked at this, when I do upgrades, I can upgrade from the dashboard a cloud device, but I cannot upgrade a device that's in device or a switch that's in device mode. That might be something that's either already here or coming soon to a Meraki near you, but I have not read that it will be or won't be. I haven't read that, but I'm assuming at some point they'll have upgrades for device mode switches as well as cloud. But right now, last time I looked, it was only cloud. Now, the other thing about, or I'll talk about that in a few minutes. We got another slide on upgrades coming up. But I just wanted to show you that that's one of the things you can do. It's pretty cool. I just go into the GUI. I say, this network of 9300s, I want you to upgrade it to 17.15.4, and boom, all the switches in that network get upgraded. Pretty cool. Now, cloud CLI is different in cloud mode than in device mode. If I am in cloud mode, the CLI is read-only. If I'm in device mode, the CLI is in read-write, meaning I can type config T, make changes, end the session, and then save, copy, run to start, right? So I can, write if I'm in device mode. Now, what do we mean by Cloud CLI? Well, Cloud CLI means that we have in the dashboard a button that you can click that says Launch Cloud CLI, and it basically opens up like a terminal window, and you look like you're on the console, or you are on the console of the switch. Now, again, if I go to a cloud switch in Cloud CLI, all I can do is do show commands and debugs. I can't go config T. But if I'm in device mode, I can do show, I can do debugs, and I can get into config T mode and edit the config. So again, we will see that in the lab on hands-on. If that, if you're a little confused on that, we'll see that. But let's jump in very quickly here and go ahead and do a quick tour of our lab here. So this is a topology drawing of the lab. On the left-hand side, the big blue box, that is our data center. Now, for this lab, we only have one data center because I only had two 9500s. If I'd had four, I probably would have built two data centers to make it look more like a production network. But for right now, I have one data center. And on the right-hand side, we have 30 branches in this particular lab. We're only going to be using one today, and we'll be using pod number 1 today. And you can think of these as branches, or you can think of it as a pod if you're a student. And on the right-hand side, the blue box and the green box represents one branch. So the blue box is our VMX, which connects us to the SD-WAN and connects us to our data center. Inside the green box is where we're going to be focused today. And the green box has 2 switches in it. And notice that the data center has 2 switches. The data center has 2 9500s And those are fully cloud source mode, right? So they are in full cloud mode, 9500s using 17.18.1 beta code. We're testing that out, and we had some things we want to try, and so we're using that in our lab here today. Over here in the green section, the pod, we have two 9300s running 17.15.1. I'm sorry, 17.15.3. Duh. 17.15.3. Again, next week I'm going to bring them up to 4. But we have two switches. 9300-1 on the left-hand side here. That is our distribution switch. And 9300-2 is our access switch. Now, I'm going to talk about number 2 first. Number 2 is already configured in cloud mode. The reason why it's already in cloud mode is because every time we reset these pods, they're always in cloud mode. We never take them out of cloud mode. They stay in cloud mode. And the reason I do that is because I need to reset these pods within 30 minutes, sometimes to go between classes. And in doing so, I can't get these switches back to CLI mode fast enough, because when you're in cloud configuration source mode, when you're in that mode, if you want to go back to being just a standard CLI switch, you have to use a TAC case. You open a TAC case, and the TAC will revert that switch for you back to CLI. Now, if you want to know how to do that, at the very end of this lecture, I have a list of links to a bunch of knowledge articles that I wrote. And one of the articles is how to take a switch from cloud mode back to CLI mode. And there's a video, a 2-minute video on how to do that as well. It shows you how to open the TAC case and all that. So you'll have that link at the end of the session here. Gives you a reason to stay, right? So anyways, this switch will be in cloud mode when we get there today. So in a second, when I do the tour, you're going to see that switch out there. But 9300-1 on the left-hand side, this one is going to be in just standard CLI mode today. And we're going to actually onboard that into configuration source device mode. So we're going to actually onboard that in the second demo here. So let's just take a quick look. Oops, didn't mean to do that. Let's go into our dashboard here. So here's the dashboard. Now, as you can see, I'm in my organization, and I'm in pod number 1's network. Now, in Meraki terms, a network is not like a LAN or it's not a grouping of computers over on a LAN somewhere. A network is just a grouping of devices. It's really just a grouping. They should have called it something like site or something different than network. Because when I think network, I'm thinking like it's a LAN somewhere, and it could be a LAN somewhere, or it might just be a location. In this case, it's our location. It's branch number 1 or pod 1. So I'm in there, and I'm on network-wide clients. And very quickly, you can see that I have assurance data popping in here. I can see that the device is up and running. I can put my mouse on this pie chart and see the different kinds of data. Here's Facebook data. Here's social web data. Here is Google. There's YouTube. So you can see that this clients that are out on these switches are making real live calls out to the internet. And if I click on this little switch here, you can actually see an overview of all the devices that are out there and all the different places they're going, right? So again, we're getting assurance data. We'll look more at this later in the lecture. But let's go ahead and go over here to switches and switching and switches. And let's see what switches are here. We should just see the one switch, C9300-2, because that's the one that's in cloud mode. So here it comes. And we can see that we have one switch, and it is in config source right here, says cloud. Now, when you first get here, when you're bringing up, like if you're doing this in your network, if you don't see this config source column here, you can add columns by going to this settings button down here. And if I turn this off, you'll see it go away. If I say apply, now you can see the config source went away. So you can add things in here. You can see your model numbers, your version control, your cloud ID. And if it doesn't show up, if you turn it on and it doesn't show up, it might be over to the right. And I can just click and drag this back over to where I want it so we can see it easily. So now we can see that we have one device that's in cloud mode, and it's named by the MAC address. And I'll explain why that is in a couple of minutes. That is the management port MAC address. And as you can see, we have various different items here. You can see that I have a picture of the switch, and I can see that 2 of the ports are lit up. That's part of the whole assurance data. I got data coming in, and I can see that I have ports lit up. I can see that the switch is online with this big green bar here. I can see utilization. If I come down to the bottom here, I can see IP addressing for the device and where it got it from. I can see that it has 17.15.3.1 code on here, and I can see that the config is up to date right now. Remember, when I'm in cloud mode, the entire device is managed by the Meraki dashboard. So again, this is what it looks like. This is where we're going to go today. Now, if we go back to switches, switches here, and what we're going to do in the next little show and tell is we are going to bring another switch on. And so in this list, we should see another switch after we're done. And we should see device mode right here. So that's what we want to get to in this particular in this lab. So let's jump back into the PowerPoints real quickly here and do a couple of more PowerPoints so we can talk about how to onboard. So I broke this into 4 steps. You see 3 on the screen. The 4th step is coming on a slide here in a minute. So there are 4 real steps to getting a device onboarded. And it doesn't matter if you're doing cloud mode or device mode. It's exactly the same. The process to onboard a device is the exact same, whether you're cloud or device, except for 1 step. We'll see that step in the slides here in a minute. We'll also see it when we do the onboarding, but there's only 1 step difference between cloud and device. Other than that, it's exactly the same. So the first thing I need to do is I need to get my switch to 17.15.1 or above. 17.15.1 is where we started having native iOS XE, cloud native, but the stable version that I've been using for about 3 or 4 or 5 months right now has been 17.15.3, and 17.15.4 just showed up in the dashboard. So again, I'm going to be upgrading to that soon. Now, the next thing I need to do is I need to connect the switch to the Meraki dashboard. So we're going to bring up what's called a next tunnel to the Meraki dashboard. And to do that, there are prerequisites. We'll see the prerequisites on the next screen. But down here, I said to bring that tunnel up, there's some prerequisites, such as I need to make sure DNS is working. I need to make sure NTP is working, and so on and so forth. And then once I have all the prerequisites done, it's 1 command to turn the tunnel on. You go into config T and you type service Meraki connect. Once you do that, bam, the thing just comes up and we have a tunnel. Well, I should say it should come up if you have all the right firewall rules open to actually get your device to where it needs to go out on the internet. When you're internal IT, internal Cisco, it takes some time to get that done because I have to go through IT to get holes open for my lab. So you'll probably have to do the same if you have a lab or a production network. Anyways, I'll show you where to get some of those firewall rules in a couple of minutes when we're in the dashboard. But actually right now would be a good time to show it. If you go into the dashboard, you go to the question mark at the very top in the upper right-hand corner. If you open that menu, there's a firewall information button right there. If you click on that, it will give you a list of all the things you need to do to open on your firewall. So you can see right here all the different things I need to do to make sure I can make it out to the internet with all the appropriate ports that I need to get there. This shows me, it gives me a really good list right here. Again, that was under question mark and then firewall information. If you go there, it brings up this big list, and you can actually download this to your PC so you have a copy of it. That's kind of cool because that saved me time last time. You don't have to copy and paste a screenshot or something. You just download it. Anyways, so that's kind of a cool little trick there to know your firewalls. So once you bring the tunnel up, you go Service Meraki Connect, the tunnel comes up. I will show you some commands in a few minutes that will help you see if the tunnel's up. Once you do that, we have to go into Meraki. And we're going to take a cloud ID, which is the Meraki version of it's the Meraki serial number that is a derivative of the serial number of the Catalyst switch. I'll show you that in a couple of seconds. So we're going to take that cloud ID, we're going to add it into Meraki dashboard, and we're going to claim that device in the dashboard, unless it's already claimed. And then we're going to add that device to the network of whichever network. Remember, I was in network pod 01 on my dashboard. So I'm going to want to add it to pod 01 when I get there today. So when you add it to the network, that's when it asks that question, do you want to be device or do you want to be cloud mode? We'll see that in the slides in a second. But here is a list of prerequisites. So I need to have a username. If I'm going into device mode, I need a username. If I'm going into cloud mode, I don't need the username because it's going to blow away the config. I'll show you about that in a minute. So I need a username that's privilege 15. I need AAA new model turned on. I need IP name services turned on with some, being able to get to a domain, a DNS server. I need lookup turned on, and I need NTP turned on. If I don't have NTP turned on, it won't come up. It will not turn on the tunnel without NTP being up. Now, I've had it up but not synchronized, and it did connect the tunnel. It just needed to be turned on, but it didn't actually make it out to the NTP server because I had a firewall rule problem. So it was unsynchronized, but yet the tunnel was still coming up. So as long as NTP is turned on, you're okay. But in this case today, we'll have it actually come on and it will synchronize. Hopefully. We're in a live demo here. You never know what's going to happen. And then, of course, once you have the prerequisites, you go into config T and you type service Meraki connect. Once you do that, the tunnels will come up. So when I bring up the tunnels, because we're in native iOS XE or cloud native iOS XE, there are some Meraki commands. So you can see up here in the upper left-hand corner, I don't know if I hope it's not too small, it says service Meraki connect. When I do that, it's going to bring up the service Meraki connect. And what you'll see is the protocol will come up right here. And then the secondary and primary tunnel will come up. So you'll see up, up, and up. If you see those three when you do service Meraki connect, you will be up and running. If you don't see those three come up, then either your term on isn't on, or something's wrong and you need to figure out what's wrong. We can go to and we can do a show Meraki because we're in cloud native iOS XE. We have Meraki commands, so I can do show Meraki and it will pull up this list here. Now, the very first time you pull up show Meraki, all the stuff right here where it says cloud ID, it says MAC address, and all that stuff, there'll just be hyphens there. So don't worry about that. The very first time, before it's actually talked to Meraki, it will have hyphens there. The next time, once you get the tunnel up and running, every time after that, when you do a show Meraki, it'll fill in these without hyphens. You'll actually fill them in like they are here. So don't worry about it if you see hyphens. That just means you haven't talked to Meraki yet for the first time. Once you, because I can actually do a show Meraki before I bring the tunnels up. And if I have never, ever, ever talked to Meraki yet, then I'll see hyphens. If I've talked to Meraki before, but the tunnel's not up, I'll see all this information because the switch now knows how to create this. This cloud ID is a Meraki serial number, and it's a derivative of the serial number of the switch. So they just take this serial number, run it through an algorithm, and come up with the cloud ID. So again, you had to have talked to Meraki once with that switch to get that all set up in the switch. Now, once I do service Meraki connect and it's up and running, you will see the word monitoring here. If you do not see the word monitoring there, the tunnel is not up, and you need to go turn it on. Now, this word monitoring is misleading because we just did this. We just did a service Meraki connect, and we brought this up, and we saw that it says monitoring, but we haven't actually claimed the device and haven't added it to the Meraki dashboard yet. So if we haven't added it to the dashboard, it's not really being monitored, even though it says it's being monitored. So I really wish that they had actually changed that word to tunnel up, so we know that the tunnel is up, or tunnel down, right? Instead of monitoring, because I have no clue if it's being monitored because I have no idea if I've actually added it to the Meraki dashboard or not yet. So be careful with that word. The word will bite you. All this is telling you is whether the tunnel is up or not. If you don't see the word monitoring, the tunnel's down. If you do see the word monitoring, the tunnel is up. Another Meraki command we have is show Meraki connect. Show Meraki connect gives you a lot of data, and here it tells you that the two primary and secondary tunnels are up. See some other data, you see packets flowing, but the main one here is the cloud ID. And I keep pointing out the cloud ID because we're going to need that cloud ID to actually claim it in the dashboard when we get to that part of doing it. So again, to recap, we're going to go into config T, type service Meraki connect after we do all the prerequisites, and it's going to say up, up, and up. So we have the protocol comes up, then primary comes up, and secondary comes up. Sometimes the secondary comes up before the primary. It doesn't matter as long as they both come up. And then I can do a show Meraki and see that it's up by seeing the word monitoring, Or I can do show Meraki Connect and see right here that it says up and up right here. And then I can, copy and paste my cloud ID to get ready to go over to Meraki and add it into the dashboard. So here is that slide. So I've jumped ahead a few steps. I'm going to show you the steps here in a minute when I actually do it on board. But so what I've done so far is we turned on the tunnel. Then I went into Meraki and I said add switch. Then I pasted in that cloud ID. And then I claimed the cloud ID. And then I added that cloud ID or that switch to a network. When I add it to a network, this is when this screen pops up. And I'm going to show you the whole steps here in just a second. But this screen pops up. If I click on this radio button, when I first open it, neither one of the radio buttons are clicked, and this stuff right here isn't showing. When I click device configuration, this screen pops up down below. And notice that I need my username and password. That's a level 15 password, a username password, like I showed you in the prerequisites. And I need my enable password, which is also, required. So that way the Meraki can log in and it will add its own usernames and logins once it gets control of the device. But for right now, we have to have a way for Meraki to actually log in. So if I select device, I'm going to be in config source device mode. That means it's going to be monitored by Meraki, but not managed by Meraki. I still have to do CLI commands to change the configuration. If I was to choose cloud mode, this is what it will look like. If I choose cloud mode, it just pops a warning up there, but doesn't ask you for any credentials. The warning is saying, hey, listen, this is going to be a very, very disruptive thing. So if this is a production switch and you're not ready for that switch to go down, don't do this right now. Because once you hit save right here, it's over. That switch is going down because it's going to factory default that switch. And a factory default is way more than just a write. It is a factory default. And then it reboots the switch. So you're definitely down. So if this is production, you might want to get a change request and then do it on a certain day and be ready if something goes wrong to be able to put a TAC case in and get it back to CLI mode if something is not the way you want it once it comes up. Anyways, you choose whether you want device or configuration. If I choose device, then I'm going to fill in the credentials, click the terms and conditions and hit save. If I choose cloud mode, I'm just going to hit save after I do it. And then we get to step 4. So let me go back real quick to the first 3 steps, just so you can remember. So the first step was to get the code, the native iOS XE code, to 17.15.3 or above. Then you're going to do the prerequisites for the tunnel. Then you're going to bring up the tunnel with Service Meraki Connect. Then you're going to claim the device in Meraki and then add it to a network. And the 4th step is right here. The 4th step is just when it's coming up. And again, here's what happens when it's provisioning. Because once you select cloud or device, Meraki Dashboard is going to take over. If I'm in device mode, if I chose device mode, what's going to happen is it's going to log in with those local credentials, Meraki is. Then it's going to upload an EEM script to the switch. Then it's going to run that script. And that script is going to add, it's not going to change, it's not going to get rid of any of the config that's already there. So if the switch is in production and it's running, it's still running while this is happening. Your device will not, this is a non-disruptive change. All it's going to do is add a couple of 100 lines. It's maybe not that many, maybe 100 lines of code to your configuration. It adds all the netconf yang information to be able to monitor the switch or send all the data to the dashboard via that tunnel that we brought up, that secure tunnel. So this is non-disruptive when we go into device mode. The EMM script is going to add a bunch of configuration commands. We'll see those in a couple of minutes to the device. Then it's going to erase the EMM script from Flash just to get rid of itself out of the Flash. That's just the last thing it does. It doesn't reboot. There is no reboot. It just adds lines of code to your configuration. If I go over here to cloud mode, this is disruptive. Once you click that button and hit save, the dashboard's going to log into the device through that tunnel, and it's going to basically factory reset the device. So any config you had on there is gone. Everything is gone. Anything saved in the flash, gone. It's all gone. It factory defaults the whole switch. It's like it rolled right off the factory conveyor belts. Then it reloads the switch, and then when it does that, the switch is fully managed by the Meraki dashboard. For all practical purposes, that switch is now a Meraki switch. It is not a Catalyst switch anymore. It's a Meraki switch. And one of the things that happens is the console port goes away. You have no access to the physical console port. If you plug a rolled cable into there, I think I have it open. If you put a rolled cable in there, let me see, where did I put it? Is it on this one? Yeah, if you put a rolled cable, if I put a rolled cable on the dashboard, if I put a rolled cable on the Catalyst switch and I plug that into my PC, this is all you're going to see. See that little flashing white cursor? That's all. That's all you're going to get out of a console port on a cloud-managed device. So Meraki switches don't have a console port, so they decided that Catalyst switches shouldn't have a console port if I am in cloud mode, because for all practical purposes, I am a Meraki switch, right? So again, it's very disruptive. That's what I want to get across. If you need to do this after hours and do a change request, you should probably do all that, right? All right, so let's actually dive into this. This is where the fun begins, right? This is where I get to have fun. I guess that makes me a nerd because I enjoy being in the lab more than anything. So let's go back over to our here, and let's go to switch and switches. And let's just confirm again in pod 1 or branch 1, whatever you want to call it, that we only have one switch that's in cloud mode. Just so you see, there's nothing up my sleeve, nothing behind the yellow curtain. We can see that we have a switch here and it's in cloud mode. Now, I'm going to go over to my distribution switch. Let me go back to here. So in this right here, we're going to take this switch, C9300-1, and we're going to onboard that in device mode into the Meraki dashboard. So this switch right here is the one we're getting ready to look at. And it still has a console port because device mode switches always have a console port. It's cloud mode that you lose the physical console port, not device mode. And so you can see here, it is the distribution switch. If I go here, let's take a quick look at show run. And you'll see that it looks pretty basic. I mean, I have a couple of things in there, but for the most part, it's pretty basic. You can see no IP domain lookup. Well, that's going to be a problem. We need to bring the tunnel up, right? That's one of the prerequisites. Here's another prerequisite. That's okay. We got that on there. Let's take a look. And I just kind of want you to kind of take a look. Everything looks pretty much like what you would expect a switch to look when it's been recently right erased and just a couple of things have been added to it, right? Here's a couple of usernames that got added. Notice that there are only 2 usernames. So we have admin and netadmin because you're going to see 3 or 4 or 5. I forget how many it adds, but Meraki will add some more to that when it does its thing. You see a few class maps; those are already there. If we take a look at the interfaces, notice that I do have interface 1 because that's the one that's taking us out to the world, out to our VMX, and number 2 takes us down. Number 2 is the one that takes us down to the switch that's in cloud mode, because remember, that's the access switch. And number 3, there's an actual client hanging off of there. So if we go back to our picture here, this right here, client, is connected to port 3. We also have one on port 3 of the other switch. So both of them have clients on them. Even though this is a distribution switch, he still has a client on it. All right, so but notice that there's nothing on the rest of the ports. There's nothing on them, right? They are just empty ports because I haven't used them yet. And Meraki is going to add some stuff to those. And we can come down here. Notice there's no, we have this one access list, but there's no real access lists on here. Notice that there is only a very little in the VTY lines, and there's nothing below the VTY lines. again, we're going to see a bunch of stuff added below the VTY lines for collector information. That's why I wanted to do a show run before we did it, so you guys could see that it was a pretty basic switch when it first started. So now let's do a show version. And you can see that I'm running 17.15.3. So that is a cloud native iOS XE version. And if I do a ping Ford.com, I'm using Ford because Walt uses Ford. That's my homage to Walt, Ford.com. Anyways, so we have ping for not working right now. So again, we have some things that we need to do to this switch to get ready to bring the tunnel up. Also, if I do a show NTP status, you can see that it's not enabled. If I do a show Meraki, we can see that it has talked. This particular switch has talked to Meraki before because there's no hyphens right here, right? It actually has a cloud ID. And notice that it does not have the word monitored after it, so we don't have a tunnel up. So again, we need to do some prerequisites and then bring the tunnel up. So now let's do one more command, show Meraki connect. And you can see that it says disabled. So again, there's no tunnel. It's not been turned on yet, so there's nothing here for it to see. Now, we need to set up our prerequisites, and I have created a cheat sheet for us. And here is what we need to do to configure the switch to get it into prerequisites. Now, I don't need to put a host name on there, but what I want you to see is when it comes into the dashboard, it'll have this host name as the name and not a MAC address. IP routing, we already saw that's on, but again, we'll just make sure that it's on. We need lookup. That said no IP domain lookup in the switch. This is a prerequisite. We have to have this. Here's our DNS servers. Here's our NTP server, and here's our AAA new model. This I'm turning on just so that you guys can see the onboarding process. And I'm doing it differently today than I normally do, so I'm adding this one in. So I remember to turn on because I'm SSHing in instead of being right on the console. So I'm going to copy and paste this, which will give us our prerequisites. And we'll go back over to our switch, and I will right click, and there we go. And for some reason, termmon has not been taking, so I'm going to just type it again for some reason. For some reason, it wasn't taking that one earlier, and just to be safe, because I want you guys to see the tunnel come up, right, when it happens. So now we have our prerequisites. So we can see that the clock is now set, right? But let's do a show NTP status, and we can see that we have a synchronized device. And if I do a ping Ford.com, we can get out to the internet. So we are pinging by DNS out to the internet. Probably ping might be a better one. Now, there's another one out there. I forget what it is off the top of my head, but it's something.meraki.com, which is the one it goes to. I can't remember what it is now. It totally escapes me. But the one that it's actually going to is something.meraki.com. So you can ping that one, too, to make sure you're getting there. But as long as you're getting out to the internet with DNS, you're probably OK. So now let's do config T, and let's do a service Meraki connect. I'm going to hit enter. And then I'm going to type end, and I'm going to type right. Oops, I'm going to type right. So now I didn't have to save it. I didn't have to do right, but it's just a habit. And it's funny, 15 years ago, they said they were going to get rid of the WR, and it's still there. So now we're waiting. Okay, here it comes. Now you can see here that it's brought up one of the tunnels. It takes a second. There we go. There's the second one. So we brought the protocol up, and we brought which one? That's the primary one. You can see it says primary right there. And we brought up our secondary. So now that's that simple to bring the tunnels up. You just make sure you have your prerequisites, which was NTP and all that stuff, and then service Meraki connect, and we're up. So now if I do a show Meraki, you can see that it says monitored down here. Now we all know that we have not brought this device into the Meraki dashboard yet, so it's not actually being monitored by Meraki right now. It's got a tunnel up. Yes, there's a tunnel up, but it's not, it's not doing everything yet because we haven't actually brought the device into our switch yet. If we go, and I'll show you that in a second. Let me do one more command. Show Meraki connect. Here's our show Meraki connect, and we can see, let me scroll up for you guys. So we can see sometimes if there's a failure, like if you have a firewall rule that's not open, it'll have a red thing here. and it will tell you what the message is. It'll actually give you a really good message. I've had it happen to me a couple of times. I don't remember what the messages were, but right here in this little empty spot, it'll give you a message and it will tell you blah, 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 blah. And it usually is a good message that gives you a good idea of what you need to do to fix it, right? And then and you don't even have to bring the tunnel down and back up. If you just go fix that thing and come back here, usually the error will clear itself up and there'll be nothing here. So, and the very first time I open this, don't let this fool you. It says fetch fail, right? And I'm thinking something happened because this is actually in here. Well, there's a blank spot here. Well, I didn't know that the first time I came in here. There was no documents to read on this when I first came in here. And I thought something had failed because it actually said failed on the screen there. And I'm sitting there going, what failed? What went wrong? Well, nothing went wrong because there's nothing here in this little spot here. So don't let that get you. It got me. And I'm telling you now because I was embarrassed the first once I figured out what happened. And then we can see that we are up and up right here, right? So we can see primary and secondary is up. And down at the bottom here, we have our cloud ID. I'm going to go ahead and highlight that so it is in my buffer so that we can actually bring it into the dashboard. So let's go over to dashboard. Our tunnel is now up, right? Let me refresh this page to show you that just because we brought that tunnel up does not mean that this device is actually in the dashboard. So again, that word monitoring is misleading. Yes, the tunnel's up, but we're not actually monitoring it because look, we only have one switch here. We don't have two. Now let's add the switch. We can add the switch by going to two places. I could, if I wanted to, go to organization and inventory. And there'll be a button in there that says add switch or add device. I forget what it says. I think it says add device, not switch. And if I do it through the inventory way, it's the same exact thing, except it adds one step. And so since I'm lazy, I prefer to do it right here because it reduces it by one step. The other reason why I say that, I'm not actually lazy, I'm kind of smart because I know that if you add steps, you add chances to do something wrong and have a fat finger or have something be wrong. So the less steps you have, the less chances of messing something up, right? So I prefer to do things right here. The reason why I'm doing it here is because I am in pod 1 and I want this switch to go to pod 1. So if I did it through inventory, I'd actually have to tell it that I want to go to pod 1. But because I'm already in pod 1 and I click the blue button, it knows that I want to put the switch into pod 1. So I don't have to have that extra step. So let's go ahead and click add switch. When I get here, we're going to see a list. Sometimes you won't see a list. Sometimes it'll come straight to the ad screen. But there's a list of switches out there that are claimed, but not in a network yet. There's a lot of them here, right? So what I can do is I can take my my cloud ID and paste it in here, and notice they all go away. That means that my switch is not in the list. Hope that makes sense. It's not been claimed yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and say claim device. Now, this screen's a little weird too, so be careful here. Notice that it says claim device, and it says enter order number, and I could paste my cloud ID here, but that would not work because it's not asking for a cloud ID, it's asking for my order number. So if I ordered, let's say, 20 9300 switches, I could put my order number in here, and it would bring up all 20 of those switches all in one window, and I could checkbox all of them and say, add them to this network, right? Or I could checkbox, like, I could claim all of them and then go and add them to networks, right? So I could do them all at once if they were all in one order. But since I don't have an order, I need to add just one switch. So I'm going to click this button that says claim individual devices. So I'm going to click right here, and it brings up this new window. This is where it says add a cloud ID right there. So I'm going to paste my cloud ID, and it's 9PBE. Let's double check that's the right one just to make sure. Right here, 9PBE. It's hard to say. That's the correct one. So I'm going to add it here. If I had more than one, I could do enter and then put another one and another one. It's one per line, right? So if I had 20 of them, I could actually paste them all in here. So I'm going to claim this one switch. I'm not adding it to a network yet. I'm just bringing it into inventory. So notice that I only see that one there. If I did not have this up here, all of them will be here, and I'd have to surf through there to try to find that one, right? So again, I can paste my number here and find just that one. So this means it's in inventory, but not in a network, which means it's not being used anywhere yet. It's not being managed, it's not being monitored, it's not being used, but we know about it, right? It's in inventory. So now I'm going to checkbox it, and I'm going to say add a network. Now this is where I lose that one step. If I had done this the other way, I would have had to tell it which network to go in. But because I'm already in a network, it knows that this is where I want to put it. So I'm going to go ahead and say add this to the network. Here is that one screen where you want to be very careful. This is that one thing that decides whether it is a cloud source device or a device source switch, right? So we want to make sure we do the right one. If I select this one, but I didn't mean to, and I go ahead and hit save right here, I'm going to have to wait for the switch to come up. It takes about 8 to 10 minutes. Then I'm going to have to go create a TAC case to get it back to CLI. And then I can onboard it again in device mode if that's what I meant to do. And I've had a few students do this where they pick the wrong one, and all of a sudden I'm having to put in a TAC case to get my switch back, right? So we want, and notice it's again warning me saying, hey, this is disruptive. But if I hit device, here's where it asks me this is where it asks me for my credentials. So I'm going to put in my credentials, and this is why I have that level 15 admin, right? And then I'm going to put in my enable password. I can't talk and type at the same time. So I'm going to check this, and you guys are going to read every single word in the terms and conditions. Don't forget that. That's important. And then we're going to hit save. Now, when I hit save here, that's it. It's over. We are done, and we can't go back until it's done, right? I can't stop it in the middle, right? Once it's done, it's done. So I hit save. Notice that it will disappear from this window. It's gone, right? I have it up here, but it's gone. That's because we claimed it and we added it to a network, so it's not in inventory anymore. It's in a network, right? So now let's go to switching and switches. Come on. And when we get over here, we're going to see 2 switches. I hope. Yes, we do, right? So here we go. We got cloud and device. Look at that. We have one that's in device mode. And this is the management MAC address for now. Remember, we put a host name on there, so I would expect a host name to be there. But it hasn't seen the switch yet, right? See, it's still red. So we haven't seen the switch, and it's gray right here, right? So if I click on it, it'll actually say never connected to the Meraki cloud yet. So that's why we still have the MAC address and not the host name. Sorry. So we don't have that host name yet. Let's go back to the switch itself. And you can see, now this is something that happens every single time you onboard, no matter whether it's cloud mode or in device mode. The tunnel will go down. You can see it's down on the protocol and then down on the primary and down on the secondary. And then it will come right back up. Don't let that mess with you. You can see that it's up here and you can see it's up here. Every single time you do an onboarding, it goes down and then back up. That's just a part of its process. It does this every single time. So don't let that mess with you. That's what it's supposed to do. Now, this is going to take about 8 minutes, and it's going to scroll, and a lot of stuff is going to scroll on the screen. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this right here, and I'm going to move it over to the side. And then I'm going to grab our slides. Where are the slides? Right here. And I'm going to, oops, I can't do it that way. And I'm going to grab this version of the slides right here. And I'm going to go continue talking while this thing onboards. So I'm going to continue. Let me do this right here. And I'm going to make this smaller so you guys can see. And I'll close that. And all right. So just so you guys can watch what's going on in the background while I'm sitting here continuing the conversation, this is going to help us not go over, 16 hours for this conversation, right? So So with that being said, I'm going to continue talking. You guys can look at the slides. You can also watch it scrolling. Once it's done scrolling, it takes about 5 to 8 minutes. Once it's done scrolling, we'll go back and take a look at it real quick, but I just want you to see that it's scrolling while I'm talking. Anyway, so let's talk about what just happened. What I just did is I did the prerequisites on the switch, NTP, IP domain, DNS, all that stuff. And then I brought the tunnel up by doing a service Meraki connect. Then I got the cloud ID by doing a show Meraki or a show Meraki connect. I got that cloud ID. And then once I got the cloud ID, I went over to the dashboard and I claimed that ID. And then I put that same device into a network. Once it does that, the Meraki puts an EEM script out on this switch. Then it runs that EEM script, which basically adds a bunch of lines of configuration to that switch, and then it erases the EEM script. So that's what we'll see happening once it starts to scroll here. So let's talk about, there you can see it's starting to scroll a little bit as we speak. So it's getting ready to take off and do its thing. So what's happening here? So let's talk about what's in the slide now, what's in the PowerPoint slide. So what we're doing right now is we're onboarding a device in cloud configuration device mode. Remember, that is a monitored only device. But what if you have a monitor only device, you have a switch that's in device mode, and you decide you want it fully monitored and fully managed, right? So that means it needs to be in the cloud mode. Well, there's no easy button. You can't just go into Meraki Dashboard and say, hey, make this device that's the switch that's in device mode, make it cloud mode. There is no button like that. So what you have to do is you have to offboard the device. Now, to offboard the device, it's actually pretty easy. If you go to the dashboard, and I'm not going to do it, obviously, but if I go to the dashboard and I go to switches, and if I go here, if I want to take this, let's say this device comes up, the switch comes up after 8 minutes, we decide, you know what, we'd rather have cloud mode. All I would have to do is click this button here and click this remove button right here. Basically, I'm removing it from the network. It's still going to be an inventory, and that's okay, but it's not going to be in a network. When you remove this from network, it's going to send a new EEM script to the switch. It's going to run that EEM script, which removes all that configuration that we are putting on right now. So we're putting all that configuration on right now, but you can remove it by removing the device from the network. It doesn't matter. It can stay in inventory because you're going to reuse the device again and go into cloud mode. So there's no reason to remove it out of inventory. You're just, once it's done doing its removal, 8 minutes later, then we can go and add that device back into a network and choose cloud this time instead of device. So again, no easy button to do that. Also, at the end of this lecture, I have a link to a knowledge article that will tell you how to remove a device out of device mode and put it into cloud mode. There's also a short 5-minute video on showing me actually doing it. So if you want to watch that, if you need to do that and you want to see it first, you can watch that video. Again, I'll give you those links at the end of the presentation. So now let's take a look at some of the features while we're still waiting for this device to onboard. As you can see, it's still scrolling over there on the left, still doing its thing. It's just adding a bunch of config to the device. So we talked a little bit about Cloud CLI. The main thing I want you to know right now about Cloud CLI is if I go into the dashboard, which you see right here, and I click this blue button right here, you can see Cloud CLI right there. I click that, I click the blue button, and this window opens. If I'm in cloud mode, it is read only. I can't go into config T mode. If it is device, I can go into read write, and I can go into config mode and edit the device. Because remember, a switch that's in device mode is only monitored. I'm still managing it with CLI commands. So that's the big thing I want you to know. And at some point in the near future, we might see a cloud device being read-write in CLI. But that's maybe something, some feature in the future we might see. I don't know if we're going to see that or not, but it's just something, that might happen in the future. You never know. So anyways, right now it's read-write and devices read-only. Health and assurance, we're going to look more at this in a few minutes once this switch comes up and it's onboarded. But basically, we are providing all the monitoring data we could possibly grab into the Meraki dashboard so that I can see that the port is up or it's down very quickly by seeing the green light or no green light, right, on a port. I can see throughput on interfaces. I can see where the clients are surfing to out on the internet based on their information. I can, there's a lot I can see here. I can actually go to the health dashboard, and it right there in a big thing says 100%. If everything it knows about is up and running and healthy, it'll just say 100. If I go to that same page and it says 88, okay, well, there's a problem because yesterday it said 100. I need to figure out what's down. So I'll look for the red lights. I'll see the red light. I'll find out what that device is. Go find out why it's down. Well, maybe someone took it offline to upgrade it. Maybe, I don't know. But whatever it is, when it comes back up, you'll see it go back to 100%. And that's it's just really cool that I can see that very quickly and easily. We'll see that in a show and tell in a couple of minutes. In-service software upgrades. Again, remember, as of the last time I looked, I haven't looked lately. It's been about 3 months since I've actually went and looked. I need to go start looking now that this event is over. But as of last time I looked, any switch that's in cloud mode can be upgraded from Meraki Dashboard. Any switch that's in device mode cannot be upgraded from the dashboard. I would say maybe in the future we'll see that happening, and it might already be there in the newer software. I just haven't seen it yet, and I need to go look. And maybe it's already happening, and you guys are answering questions in the background in the question and answer portion of this. Here's another really cool feature. Now, remember I said when a switch is in device mode, remember it's only being monitored. So what's really cool though is every time I go into CLI and I make a change to CLI and I save that config to the start memory, the next time the Meraki switch pulls, or the Meraki dashboard pulls the switch, it's going to say, oh wait, the configuration has changed since the last time I was here. Let me grab a copy of it. So every time you make a change to the configuration in device mode, within X number of minutes or seconds, the dashboard will grab a copy of it and keep it in the cloud. So now I have backup copies of my configs. No longer do I have to make a copy of it and put it in a notepad on my PC. I can just know that dashboard is making copies for me. And I can compare versions here. I can open up version 1 here and version 2 here, and I can see in the color coded that something has changed, and I can look at it and see what changed. Now, the one thing about this that's not here yet that I hope comes soon is there's no easy button to restore a config back to a switch in device mode. So if, let's say, this is a week-old config on the right-hand side over here, let's say I want that to go back to that. I can't just push a button and it goes back to that. But there is a download button right here that I can download that config to my PC, and then I can upload that to the switch manually. So again, I have backups of the config, which is a great improvement. I mean, that's much better than me doing a copy and paste in a notepad and remembering to do that every time, right? How many times have you forgotten to do it, then you lose a config and you're like, oh crap, I didn't make a backup, right? So this is automatically happening as long as it's being monitored by the dashboard. That's super cool. Some of the other features like intelligent capture, again, this is just basically having a built-in Wireshark. I can say switch number 2, port number 2, run the Wireshark for 15 seconds, and I can either just view that data just like a PCAP, just like any other PCAP. I can view it right there in the Meraki dashboard, or I can save it to the Meraki dashboard in the database and come back and look at it later, or I can download it to my PC and open it up in Wireshark and look at it in Wireshark, right? So again, really cool tool because I don't have to take my laptop, go into the lab, plug it, go into the network, plug my laptop into the network, turn on Wireshark, no more of that, right? I don't have to do that. I can just turn it on right from the dashboard. And of course, we have, PCAP software built into the switches, so it collects the data, right? So again, just super cool that we have that. All right, so here we are at our next landmark of doing hands-on lab, and hopefully our switch is done. Let's go take a look. Let me get rid of that, and let me bring this up, and then let's get to the next slide, just so we're there when we're ready. All right, and now let's go to this one, and let's make this full screen again. And I don't know if it's done or not. Usually it says closed. Oh, here it is, right here, closed, right there. So when you see that word closed right there at the very end and it stops scrolling after a while, usually that means that it's done. So I'm going to, because it's pretty verbose, and every time Meraki logs in, we start seeing scrolling all over the screen. I'm going to do a term nomon. I always laugh at that one because it should be no term on, right? It's been term nomons for 30 years. So now let's do a show Meraki, and nothing looks different. Wait a minute, we onboarded. Why doesn't anything look different? Because nothing looks different here. This only tells me that the tunnel's up. It doesn't tell me whether we've actually connected it to the dashboard or not. It just says the tunnel's up. Nothing changes here. Let's do a show Meraki connect. Again, here's empty here. We're glad it's empty there, because if something was there, we'd be in trouble. And we can see it's up and up, but nothing's changed here. I can see we have some data flowing, and I can see my cloud ID, but nothing changed, because these two particular commands are only to tell you whether the tunnel's up or down, right? There was another one too that I forgot to show you that I really should show you. Before we actually bring the switch up and onboard it, we could have done I forgot to show this. I could do a show Meraki compatibility, and it will actually tell you that whether this switch is compatible or not. So you can see it says compatible right there. And it gives you a list down here as well, but it says, hey, buddy, you're good to go. So should have done that before we did the onboard, but I forgot to show you guys. It was in my list to show you, but I didn't show you. So anyways, there it is. So let's do a show run real quick and kind of get an idea of like some of the commands it's added. So let's go down here. I don't see anything right here that's new, but look, here we're starting to see some new commands. Here's some flow records, right? We're starting to see flow control. We're going to see quite a few pages of flow control here, so that we can flow data through the tunnel to the Meraki dashboard. So look at that, it's quite a few pages, right? And we got some device tracking stuff down here. So that was probably what, 50, 60 lines of code right there. And then we go down, this was here already. Let's see. Oh, look at this. Look, remember we only had 2 usernames. Now we have, oops, I don't want to do that. Now we have, oh crap. Now we have 4 extra usernames, or no, 4 usernames, right? Extra. So it added this one, this one, this one, and this one, right? If we scroll down, look at this. There's extra stuff on the ports. Let's go down here. It's easier to see in the empty ones. Look at this. Remember all these empty ports had nothing on them? Now they have flow control on them. And the ones that we actually have configured have it on there, right? So look at that. It's flow control right here. So again, it added stuff to all the ports. Let's go down. There's another, 50, 75 lines of code. We go down here. Notice it added some HTTP stuff. Added some stuff right here. Let's see. Added some access lists right here. Added more stuff right here. Look at that, man, quite a bit. If you go down below the VTY lines, look, we have a bunch of event telemetry information going out. So you can see it added a couple hundred lines of code to my thing. Now the switch was never down. It never rebooted. It was fully operational and passing data just like it was before we started. This should have been non-disruptive. Now let's go over to our dashboard and look at that. Without me even doing refresh, it went green right here. Notice that it still has this because it does need a refresh. So let's refresh the page and we should see 9300-0101, I think it is. Let's see if we have that. There it is, right? It got the host name from the config that was already out there. So there's that config, and that's what we put in during the prerequisites, if you remember. If we go right here, remember, we put that in right here, right? And we added that to the switch. So let's go in and take a look. Now, this is red right now, but you can see just the teeny little tip is green right there. After about 12 or 24 hours, I forget how long it takes, this whole thing will be green as long as the switch is up. So over time, that'll just go green from right to left. So here we are with the switch, and as you can see, the switch has been added with the MAC not the MAC address, but with the host name. And notice there's not a little pencil here. I'm going to point that out in a minute. And just because I hate seeing a gray box there, I'm going to go ahead and put the real address of where that switch is. It's in building 13 in San Jose, just because I like seeing the map there. Not important to the device, but notice that it says configuration source device. So that means that the config is actually stored locally on the device, and it's in monitor mode only. It's not in monitored and managed, and it's online. Notice that we have telemetry data and assurance data because these ports are lit up. We have 3 ports. The one with the little arrow, that tells us that the port number 1 is the one that it's talking to Meraki Dashboard on. That's where that tunnel is. And if I click on port number 3, we can see that that's where the client is connected. And if we go down to the bottom, we should see some data, just like we had done it. If we had done a show interface, TW0103, right? If we had done a show interface, we would have seen data such as this on the CLI, right? So again, we have quite a bit of information that we glean from this. We can see that it's running 17.15.3. We can, we don't see that the config is up to date. Remember we saw config is up to date? Well, that was on the cloud mode one, because remember, he's managing the config, and in device mode, we're not managing the config. We can also see the real serial number of the switch, and then the Meraki version of that, right? The derivative of it. So again, just a lot of really good data. We're now monitoring this device in the Meraki dashboard. If I go to clients right here, network clients, we can see that we will see that there's a lot of data flowing, and this is for both switches right here. If I go to the bottom, I can see clients down here. Now, I don't remember which one is, hold on, right here. So here's the one in the middle is the one that's connected to the switch that's in device mode. So this is that client connected to port 3. So if I click on it, I can see all the data from that device, that client, here in the Meraki dashboard. That's super cool. So I come over here, I can see that the device is connected to the switch. I can see that all the different data. We have a Windows update that happened. We have some Apple services. We have AT&T. We have YouTube. We have, and that's because I have a Python script that's running on the client that's just pumping data to the internet right and left. Anyways, really cool stuff that I can now have a switch that's in device mode being monitored by the Meraki dashboard. So now I can come in every morning and I can see what's healthy and what's not healthy, right? So now let me show you something real quick just to prove to you what I was talking about and to show you Cloud CLI. So now we're going to be talking a little bit about features. So, so now let's take a look here. I'm going to go into the cloud mode one. And if I go into cloud mode, this is the MAC address of the management port, because remember, we blew away the configuration when we did the factory default. So there is no host name out there for it to get when it onboarded, right? So notice there's a pencil here. I can change that, but I'm not going to change it yet. Let's go into Cloud CLI right here. I'm going to launch the Cloud CLI, and I can do this here in the small window, or if I want a full-size window, I can click Detach Terminal, and I can come over here, and I can do, now notice I'm in cloud. If I try to type enable, I can't go enable. If I try to type config T, I can't go config T, but I can do a show IP int brief, right? You know, I can see that, and I can see what my addresses are here. I could do something like show run include username. I'm sorry. Yeah, username, right? And I can see all the usernames. Or I could do hostname. And you can see that it will be that MAC address right here, right? And I can't, but what I cannot do is I can't go, like, let's say I want to change that to be a real name that I understand. I can't type config T here because I'm read-only because I'm in cloud mode. So if I close this CLI window, if I want to change that, I would have to click the pencil in the GUI, and then I could type in C9300-pod1-switch2 and hit save. Now it changes it here, but notice that it has not changed. You know, notice my prompt has not changed here yet. It takes a few seconds. Also notice that if I do a refresh right now, if I catch it quick enough, hopefully it hasn't updated yet. If I refresh the screen right now, hopefully it'll say out of date. Yeah, see how it says out of date right here? Because I made a change to the config, but it has not synchronized that config to the switch yet. So you can see that it says out of date. If I go back into CLI, by now it might have already updated. So now let's go into here and launch it. And notice that now the host name has changed in the CLI, meaning that the config has now made it synchronized to the cloud device, cloud switch. So that's pretty cool. You can see it took like, what, 15 seconds or so. And if I do a refresh now on this screen, it should go from out of date to being in date because it's now synchronized that down to the switch. So let's take a look and see if it did it. And I wait because my internet connection is very slow. Not sure why it's this slow today. It's not normally this slow. Maybe because I got full video going or something. Notice that it says up to date now, right? And if I want to make that same kind of change to the other one, let's go to the other switch in device mode. We're getting there. I go to device mode, and then I click on the one that says device. Notice we're starting to see just a tad more little green down there on the end. That'll grow as time goes by, and it's bigger over here because we see the resolution's a little different. But if I come here, and I notice there's no pencil here because I'm in device mode, meaning that I cannot, I'm not managing this device. I'm only monitoring it. So I have to go into here. And notice that it has a pound sign, meaning that I'm enabled, and I can type config T. I couldn't do that in the other one. So now I can type host name, and I can say Paul test, right? Hit enter, and end, and right. Now it's changed here, but it will have not changed here. Notice there is no out of date thing here because we're not managing the config. It's, you know, so there is no idea of out of date. And if I do a refresh, it's probably not going to update here. I've noticed that it's taking about a minute for these things to upgrade now, which is forever when you're sitting here talking, waiting for it to change. Notice it should say Paul test. And if I go over here and I launch this, we're going to see that my prompt is still Paul test right here, right? And if I did a, it doesn't matter. I don't have to do this, but I can do a show run include host name. And you can see that it's Paul test. We can see it in the prompt as well, but it hasn't changed here. I'll keep talking and do some more features. And in a couple of seconds, we'll see it change. Let's go over and take a real quick look at network-wide, in the network-wide menu, and intelligent capture. If I click on intelligent capture, this is like my Wireshark. This is super cool. If I'm out and about, I can actually run captures while I'm sitting at McDonald's eating my lunch if I have my laptop with me, right? So I come down here, I tell it I want to do it for switches, and then I come here and here's that switch, here's the, oh, look, it changed to Paul test. So it did change that host name on that device. So while we were switching over, it finally got the config and updated itself. So now let's go to Paul test, which happens to be a switch in device mode. And then I'm going to say which interface. Let's just go to interface 3 because that's the one that has that client sitting on it. And I have options here. I can save to the cloud, meaning that the PCAP, will get saved to the cloud and I can look at it anytime I want. I think I can save up to 10. I think it says it right there at the top. Yeah, current license allows us to store 10 captures in the back end. And I think it will overwrite when you do the 11th one, I think it overrides the oldest. I don't know. I didn't read that to see if it says. I can also just tell it to download it directly to my PC, or I can look at it right here on the screen right now. Let's just go ahead and look at it right now. And I'm going to tell it just to do 10 seconds of capture. I can tell it however long I want it to capture for. Giving it a good name is important. Make sure you name it something you're going to realize what this capture is when it comes time to look at it later if you store it out in the cloud, right? Or if you store it on your PC, because this is the name of the file when it gets downloaded to your PC as well. Start capture. So now what's happening is it's going out to that switch and turning capture on port number 3. And it's going to run it for 10 seconds. Now, 10 seconds takes forever while I'm sitting here talking. And I'm going to be doing a song and a dance here and waiting for this thing to do its capture. But what it's going to do is basically give me just a regular, like if I'm running Wireshark on this thing. But I didn't have to actually grab my PC, run into the data center, plug my laptop into the network, find a port, tell the port to, send that traffic to that port so I can look at it, so on and so forth. I can just do this right here. And now it's getting ready to show me my device, all my capture, right? This looks like a Wireshark capture right here. So let's click on one of these and let's see what we get on it. I was looking for something specific here. I'm not seeing it. Anyways, but you can see that I'm looking at traffic coming from the internet to my device that's out on port number 3 right there, right? And I can dive down in the traffic, just like I can see that it's a 443 traffic, blah, blah, blah. Just like any other capture. This is super cool. I can actually be sitting at McDonald's or wherever else you're eating, at Chick-fil-A. I can be sitting at Chick-fil-A, which is the better one. I like it better. Now I'm going to get slaughtered online. There's going to be comments everywhere saying, Paul likes Chick-fil-A better than McDonald's. Sitting at Chick-fil-A, I grab my laptop. Something's wrong on the network. Someone calls me and says, hey, network down. I can actually come in here, do captures, look at it and say, oh, look, here's the problem right here, and go in and fix it, right? So again, super cool tools that we have right here. If I want to do in-service upgrades, that's over here under organization and firmware upgrades. You come here and you can actually schedule for next Monday at 4 o'clock, everybody on network number 1, all 9300s on network number 1, upgrade to, let's see what the latest is right here, 17.15.4. Remember, I was on 17.15.3. Again, I'm not going to sit here and go through an upgrade. It takes a while, but you can come up here to the top and schedule upgrades right here. Again, it's pretty easy. You just do it, and I have some videos out online that show you how to do that. Again, that's really what I want to show right now. Again, we can see, let's just go back one more time to the switches, and you'll see that name change did happen, even though we saw it in the intelligent capture. Let's just go one more time and look. And again, that device that says Paul Test is in device mode. When I changed that in CLI, we had to wait for the dashboard to go scan the switch and say, oh, wait, I got a difference in config. Let me update it. Also, one thing I didn't show you is config history. On the device modes, if I come over here and I clicked on Paul Test, which is the switch in device mode, if I go over to config history, I can see the latest config. Here's the latest one right now. This is the one we're running right now. And if I want to change it, I can right here. Here's all the different configs we had. If I want to compare, I can click this compare button, and then I can go back one. Let's go back one right here. And we can see that, hey, look, the host name changed. Well, we know because we did that, right? And let's say I want to go back to this one right here. All I have to do is click download. It will bring it to my PC, and then I can manually upload it to the switch. So again, it's automatically keeping backups of my config. I no longer have to copy and paste them in the notepad. That's pretty cool. All right, one last thing I want to show you before we jump out of here, because we are right at time. I just want to show you very quickly that this can be done for wireless as well. Now, this is a huge network. This is the Cisco Validated Lab. Walt is actually taking questions for us right now in the Slido. This is his lab. And what Cisco Validated does is they take pretty much everything that Cisco has, they build it into one big, huge production network that you see here, and then they validate that everything works with everything. So if I'm a business unit in Cisco and I want to test my new widget, I go to Walt, give him the widget, he inputs it in the network, and they test it against everything. You can see over on the left here, they have SD-WAN through Catalyst SD-WAN. On the right, they have a Meraki SD-WAN. In the middle, they have FTD. They got all kinds of stuff, wireless, wired, all kinds of clients, everything. And Walt has been gracious enough to allow me and my team to use their lab to do demonstrations like this. So we're just going to be using a teeny little fraction of this. And we're going to come into the New Jersey data center over here. And we're going to see up here that we have a WLC. And then we're going to see in another branch in the New Jersey network that there is an access point. And that access point has a client connected to that access point. And we're going to see all that data in the dashboard. That's super cool. So again, just a quick show and tell here of what he has. In the New Jersey network, there's a small portion of it. This isn't the whole thing. Obviously, you can tell I cut it off here at the top. But what you can see is there's a Fusion router here at the bottom, and there's a WLC hanging off of there. And then that goes up to their core and gets distributed out throughout the network, right? And then the AP is at a different location, and it is here in the New York office. There's an AP, and there is a client. So I'm just going to go into dashboard really quick and take 2 minutes and show you that it's possible and show you that it's actually in the dashboard. We're going to take a Catalyst, a Cisco product, Catalyst, a WLC, a wireless LAN controller, and we're going to bring that into the dashboard via the configuration source device mode. Now, when we go in there today, you're going to see the word hybrid. That's the way it always did look in the old software. I don't know if the WLC software has been upgraded yet in dashboard to say device mode the way the switches have. But at some point, Walt will upgrade the software in his network, and we'll see if it actually says device or if it still says hybrid. Anyways, they're doing a bunch of testing right now, so they can't. They're a production network. They have to wait till after certain tests before they can upgrade. So again, that's why he's a little bit in the rears when it comes to software. All right, so let's go to the dashboard, if I can find it, right here. So here's the dashboard. Actually, I need Walt's dashboard. Here we go. So this is Walt's dashboard for the Cisco Validated Lab. And as you can see, I'm in that New Jersey office in the network. And I went to wireless and list. And as you can see here, there is a wireless LAN controller sitting out here in Meraki land. That's pretty cool. I have a Cisco wireless controller in Meraki land. Now, in the Meraki world, up until recently, there was no device that was a wireless LAN controller. They are getting ready to come out with one. I forget what they call it now. I forget what they call it, but they are coming out with their own version of wireless LAN controller. But as of last time I looked, that wasn't out yet. It was something that they were coming out with in the short time. Anyways, but the fact that we can take a Cisco wireless LAN controller, put it in the Meraki dashboard, that's pretty cool. If I come down here, I can see the ports are lit up just like the switches. I can see, the location. I can see the IP addressing. I can see what code it's running. I can see that there is one client off of this WLC, and there are 3 access points. So 3 access points. So we're not actually bringing the access points into dashboard. We're bringing the WLC into the dashboard, and any access points that are connected to that WLC are brought in with the WLC into the dashboard, and any clients that are connected to those APs are also accessible from the dashboard. So again, real quickly, we can see that we have the WLC here. We can see it says hybrid here. Remember, hybrid was the word that we used to use for device configuration mode. So hopefully at some point they'll bring this up to that as well. Now, let's go to another network where our access point and our switch and our client lives. And we'll go over here very quickly. And when it comes up, we will see that, here we go. So we're coming up here and we're going to go under wireless. It's redrawing again. Dun, 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 dun. Come on. Watch this. This is going to be the ending of this the ending of this demo. Something happened. Here we go. It's coming back. I don't know why it's taking so long. Okay, here we go. So I'm in a new network. This is where the access point and the client live. And if I come over here to wireless, you can see that I have access points. So I'm here, and you can see the checkbox there. So I'm here, and we can see that we have an access point here. And if I click on this access point, it's up and running. We can see that it is a Cisco 9166. And I come here and click on it, and we will see what we want to see for an access point. So we can see that the port is lit up, which is the port taking the access point into the switch. And we can see down below that there is a client down here connected to it wirelessly. We can see usage data. We can see how long it's been up for, and we can see what's going on with the different radios. That's pretty cool. We can see all the IP addressing. We can see all kinds of information about this access point itself. And if I come down here to the bottom, I can click on the client, or I could come here to network wide and go to clients. If I go to network wide and clients, it's all the clients. And if I go to here, it takes me directly to the client. Let's click directly on the client and go there, and then we will be done with our session for today. But I just wanted you to know that this is happening for the wireless community as well as the switch community of devices. So we come here, I'm on that client. We can see that the client is connected to this AP, which is connected to this WLC, and we can see assurance data here. We can see there was a Microsoft service here. We can see there's a Windows update. We can see that there's an Office 365. We can see unknown. So again, not only am I seeing the WLC, I'm seeing all the access points that are in the WLC, and I'm also seeing all the clients that are connected to those access points. That's super cool and gives us a lot of power with the wireless community as well. With that being said, here are those links that I told you about. If you write down one of them, you can just know that it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And it's tinyurl.com, CLDMGMTKA for Knowledge Article 1. Knowledge Article 1 is just an overview of Cloud Managed. Knowledge Article 2 is all about onboarding a switch into device configuration source mode. And you get a video on me doing that as well as writing on what it's all about. Then we get third one is actually how to do a cloud onboarding from a switch and a video on how to do that. Then the next one is how to go from device back to CLI mode and then into cloud mode if you have a device if you have a switch in device configuration mode, but you really want it in cloud mode. And there's a video showing you how to do that. And then there's an offboarding. How do I offboard a cloud device just back to a standard CLI switch? Again, remember that takes a TAC case to do that. So I show you in a video how to do the TAC case and how the whole thing works and how to get back to CLI. And then this last one is a weird one. It's an outlier, and this outlier is for people that already have the old version, the legacy version of Cloud. We used to call it Cloud Monitored. This is the one where there was an application to onboard the devices. You go into the application, you onboard your switch, and then it builds a container on the switch. It's not native. If you are running those, I highly recommend you start planning to get off of that version and get onto device or cloud managed, so what I showed you today. Because in early January, those are actually going to stop working altogether. So you need to actually get off those before early January. I show you in a video how to offboard those. You have to use that special app. You go into the app, you offboard it, and actually, no, you don't. You basically take it out of the network. But again, you have to offboard it, and then you onboard it the way we saw today. With that being said, I really appreciate everybody that was here today. I hope you got a lot out of this and it helps you. And again, all those knowledge papers that are there, share those with everybody, because these knowledge papers are for everybody to learn this. Also, if you're doing a pre-sales motion, go ahead and use these in a pre-sales motion. If you're using this information to sell, to your customers. Again, these are great papers to help doing the pre-sale as well as learning how to do this, to do all these functions. Again, thank you for being here, and I'm going to pass it back to the moderator.
Thank you very much, Paul. And those resources are available, as Paul mentioned. If you go on Slido, towards the top left corner of your screen, there's a drop-down menu, and you'll see all the links, the post-event discussion thread, the actual knowledge articles listed one by one, as well as let's see here, the actual live stream page, and then we'll actually have the recording available for immediate playback after it ends. Okay. If you have a question, I'll keep the Slido Q&A window open for a couple more minutes, but I do encourage you to join the post-event discussion thread. For even more tutorials, demonstrations, and future virtual events, please visit the Cisco Learning Network. Your feedback is important, and at this time, you'll see the Slido post-event survey. Please do take the time to participate and let us know how we did. Once again, we thank everyone for joining us today, and we will see you next time. Have a great day.